We're excited about today. Today is the holiday season for college basketball coaches. It's a fun time of year. This next week, coming weeks, 4 or 5 weeks period. It's a grind, but it's a lot of fun for coaches and players. And we're super excited about Team 120. And as I told my staff, and we talked about as a staff, I think we have, as many challenges as we've had as a coaching staff. And when you look at our early schedule in particular, and that's well documented, the contributions of our guys that have graduated, we've got some challenges ahead of us, but we're super excited about digging in with this group and spending some time with some of our new guys. Obviously, we've got a lot of new faces and some returning guys as well. So can't wait to get rolling here tomorrow.
Did you turn the page pretty quickly, or are you still seeing the production in your rearview mirror, and how do we get it here?
In terms of last season, this season, yeah, I said we had former players, a former player banquet a couple weeks ago, and I said then, this is the last time I'm talking about last year's team, and it was just a little bit of reflection. It's time to move forward. Last year's team was last year's team. We're really proud of what that group accomplished, but now is the time for this group to form its own identity, and that's going to require some contributions from some guys that, honestly, our fan base may not be quite as familiar with, and that's okay. So we're anxious for that.
Is it easier to move forward when you have so many new guys and kind of get them excited for a new year rather than dwelling on what happened last year?
Well, I think the biggest question for one of the questions for this group is going to be kind of who is going to answer the bell when it gets late or when it gets into crunch time situation. We had 2 all-conference guys who made so many plays for us late in the year last year. So because it's those, because you have unknowns, that's what, if we had a team that was returning, 4 starters, well, then you don't have as many unknowns. But we do, and I think the exciting thing is you have a lot of new guys. It's also anxious when you have a lot of new guys. So, time will tell. How we approach all that.
Chris, one of those new guys, Keyshawn, one thing I heard from players over there was that you had one adverse situation maybe in Spain.
Yeah.
That he stood up in the huddle or made some plays or whatever to establish that veteran leadership you said you wanted. How has that progressed already since he got here?
With him in particular?
Keyshawn in particular, yeah.
I think that's going to be a process for him. I think it's something we want out of Keyshawn. But he's also got to earn the trust and the respect of a brand new group of guys. That's not something, we all know this, that's not something that you're given because he's suddenly a 5th-year guy. I think he's got to earn that, and he's got to continue to earn that on the day in, day out basis. I don't, we'll name captains at some point, but I really think leadership is going to be a collective thing with this group. I don't know that there's, maybe outside of CJ, that there's 2 or 3 guys that you would say clearly that's who needs to lead this group. I do think between CJ and Andre and Keyshawn, we have some potential there, and Joey. But we expect that from Keyshawn, but it's also something he's got to earn here in the coming weeks.
From that big picture perspective, then, what did you get out of that trip? I mean, it's a little bit of that head start into the season that you find out about your guys.
Yeah, what we got is a lot of quality time together, and maybe learned a little bit about our team through the games, but the games were so lopsided. The competition, particularly the first 2 games, it just didn't provide a whole lot of honest feedback. Now the 3rd game, there was good competition. They had some older guys that were pros. We were popped pretty good, but it's hard to understand. That they weren't what we're facing in Big Ten play. That's for sure. None of those 3 teams were, and it wasn't close. So I don't know what you can take from that, but we did have incredible time together. I think a new group with a bunch of new guys, having them spend time in hotels and traveling is a good thing. Will it pay dividends in terms of wins and losses? That's up for debate.
Chris, it seems like last year you were able to get the Thad's guys to buy in really quickly, and that showed.
Sure.
How easy or hard is it when you have so many new guys to come in to buy in, when you have those Thad's guys, but they seem to buy in? I guess just how do you continue the culture with such a new roster?
Well, what was so critical last year was we had two guys in particular in Jay Sean and Kada that they bought in completely, and they were our best players. So everybody really had to follow, and we went through some tough times. The three of us, Jay Sean and Kada, but I think early in the season, once the rest of the players saw them really embracing us as a coaching staff, everybody followed. So that in some ways made it easy. I think that we're not at that point yet where I think we've got a group that's anxious to learn. They're excited about being a part of what we're doing. But I don't know if you really know the total buy-in of your team until you face some adversity in the midst of the season, and until you face it a couple times. I don't really think you can't really make those determinations until then.
Chris, are you looking at any of the preseason projections? I know we joked with you at the tournament last year about the manila folder you had.
Yeah.
Are you paying attention to that again at this point? Or?
You know, I think in some ways, and you guys know this, your preseason stuff, your projections, in some ways it's a reflection of the prior season. So we're probably going to get some credit for last year's team that many of these guys were part of. But I think it's an educated guess at best. So we're aware of it, and it's really been all over the map, hasn't it? I think from 6th to 12th, and some of the things that I've seen, and more towards kind of 8, 9. And I think our league is one that it's hard to guess right now. We have a lot of teams that are returning a lot of stuff. A lot of. I mean, you look at the bottom of the Big Ten that finished last year. They are returning a lot of guys. Some off injuries. We have some really gifted teams there. And then we have some teams that have really recruited well and have some all-conference players returning. So it's something we've looked at a little bit, but not as much. I'm sure at some point Coach Peden will have his wall up there, but we're not there yet. And we understand that I do. When I look at those things, I get it. I understand that we have questions about our group. We have to answer as a coaching staff and as players. We have to answer them. It's understandable when you lost what we lost to have some questions about our group.
What's the first order of business you think it has to be? Or is it always the same we go with?
Yeah.
What is the approach?
First order of practice, you're saying? Make sure everybody gets to class on Thursday and finishes that and arrives and is healthy. We're a little bit, surprisingly, a little bit nicked up right now with a couple guys. We have a couple guys that are Micah has a thumb injury that's going to limit him until for a week or so. Keyshawn has a hamstring strain that's going to limit him for a day or two. And then there's another player, C.J. Walker, who we're waiting on some testing on. So health is most important. But, you know, really we're gonna do what we've done. And we'll look a little bit different offensively and defensively, not dramatically, but we'll look a little bit different because our personnel is different. But we're going to stay pretty consistent. There'll be long days for our guys. They'll be tired. It's not going to be like it was in the summer where we were in and out of here in an hour. It's going to be a lot of long days. We're going to have to pay the price to play well early in the year, and that requires a lot of work between now and November.
Chris, how difficult is the balance of you're in year 2 at a new program, you're still reshaping and building things, yet you set a pretty high expectation in year 1. Granted, you had some talented players that aren't here anymore, but it just seems like it would be tough to sort of balance where you want to go, sort of where you've been in such a quick time?
Yeah, I think. It's interesting. I think you every year you have high expectations for how your team is going to perform relative to its potential, and that's really kind of where we're at. We have high expectations for how our team is going to perform relative to our potential as a group. Now, if you're asking me, hey, what's your potential as a group, I would say we got a lot to learn between now and the start of the year. But there is a certain level of expectation, a standard in which we want to practice, a standard in which we want to compete, a certain standard in which we want to be able to handle adverse situations in the midst of games. And it's our expectation in these coming weeks to get our guys to understand that, hey, we're gonna play to our level of expectation. It didn't cross my mind one time about, because I got asked that a lot about, hey, maybe just, come in and if you have a mediocre year, that's okay. As I've said, if we had a good year, that was great. It was great for our older guys. And we're going to try to compete to our standard as much as we can every year, and we'll see what that looks like once we get our group together.
Your first years of all your stops have been drastically different, obviously.
Yeah.
How does this year two, I guess, stack up in terms of where you think you are in the building process compared to
Clearly our most challenging. This is clearly our most challenging. I said that to our coaching staff. I think this is our most challenging year since we've been together, just because we have, I think it's a combination of a couple things. Our schedule, which is, our schedule is the hardest schedule that we've put together. And so obviously that was by design. We put it together, so there's no one to blame but me, really. You can blame me, okay? I deserve all the blame on that one. So we'll see if it was the right move or not, but I think you combine that with just the number of new faces that we're implementing with some of the older guys that we have returning. I think we have some challenges as a staff and a program, but that's also exciting, Bill, in the sense that we get to see how quickly we can forge a new identity with the new group.
Coach, obviously, we all know what kind of talent you lost last year with Caden and Jay Sean and all those guys. And obviously that's something you guys have to fill. But just what stuff that you want to work on as a team to maybe get better as a cohesive unit instead of just individual players?
Well, I think last year, if you look at our numbers, we led the Big Ten in defensive efficiency, and we were top 15 in the country in defensive efficiency for the bulk of the year. I think it's going to begin there. We have to be a team that is really, really tough and sound on the defensive end. And given we lost some length and some size and some versatility, I think that's the biggest thing I'm looking at. Are we going to be as defensive minded as we were last year?
And then kind of going off of that, what enabled you guys to be so good on defense last year? I mean, that's an area where Ohio State was really struggling in recent years leading up to you guys coming in here. Just what did you guys implement that allowed you guys to be so efficient on defense?
Well, I think it goes back to what was said earlier. I think the buy-in of our kids really. Certainly there are scheming that you can do defensively, but a lot of it is we had good length and good versatility, particularly with Kata and Jay Sean and Andrew Dockich. As surprising as that was for all of us, myself included, had some really good moments defensively. I mean, he was really, really important for us late defensively. And so I think when you look at that, it was also a byproduct of their buy-in as a group. They really did want to. They believed that we were going to win games on that end, and we'll see if this group believes the same. And I think that's the largest looming question for us as a coaching staff.
It seems like Musa last year, that's what got him on the floor, was his defense and his strength and athleticism. it seems like Luther is a guy who is almost defense first, which seems rare for a freshman. If you get to the point where those two are on the floor together, how, I guess, athletic and how perimeters sound can you guys be on the defensive end, the perimeter with those two guys?
Well, I think they both have the ability to be good defenders. I think they both can. C.J. Jackson is another good perimeter defender. I think they both can be good defenders, but Luther's, I want to caution, he's a freshman who's kind of learning, he's really good on the ball. He's got to get better off the ball. But he wants to be a good defender. He's got a great approach and a great attitude, and I think offensively he's maybe a little bit better than what we give him credit for as well. But having him, and I think Musa had some really good moments for us defensively last year. He's got to continue to grow in that area as well as his overall offensive game, but it gives you some versatility with those two guys. Andre Wesson, I would say right now Andre Wesson and C.J. Jackson are our two most sound, solid perimeter defenders. They have to continue to grow in that area, but those two guys right now are kind of a standard. We have some of our young guys, Luther and Musa, can grow and look at and aspire to be.
How much do you see your offense, obviously last year was playing through Cato a lot, and it seems like that role is Caleb's now. Just how is he kind of responding to that, and how have you seen him performing so far?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it's going to be, we all in here know, in late games where we went a lot last year. Cato had the ability to make challenge shots and create scoring opportunities when he was closely guarded. And I think that's going to fall on Caleb for sure some this year, but I think also that's going to be a collective thing for us. I think the open man may be the most important option late in games this year for us. It's certainly going to, Caleb, the offense is he's going to be a guy that's going to be more in terms of volume, going to get more volume opportunities. But I think the open man is going to be perhaps the most critical element when it comes to late game situations.
Chris, you guys got a bit of a unique experience with the Spain trip.
Yeah.
Based on that and what you've seen from your guys, what are you most excited about with this team as you head into start practice
I think just kind of getting to learn about what we can do on the floor, which sometimes you don't fully know that until you play a schedule. Now we'll know that pretty early, given who we play and some of the challenges we have early. But I think just getting to know this group, I think we're anxious to see how the personalities mesh. They really do like each other, and as of now, they like the coaches. That'll change in a couple weeks, but they do like each other, and we've enjoyed coaching them. But I think just kind of seeing what may be the potential of this group.
Chris, every time we talked to you this summer, it seemed like you were going 100 miles an hour on the recruiting trail. Was there ever, you got a lot of good news too, but was there ever a point that it settled down for you? Did you get any chance to catch your breath at all?
This off season has been good, just because we did as a family get a chance to settle in a little bit. But I think the pressure was, we certainly felt the pressure as a staff to have a really good put together, a good recruiting class, another really good recruiting class. So you're never fully at rest when you certainly feel that pressure. But it's been good. It's been good to be around the city and spend more time here. And we've gotten to know a few more people and certainly feel at a little bit different place than what we did last summer. But it was an incredibly busy off season. I said this all along. My wife says every time in the fall, I've never seen you work this hard. She's literally said for the last 2 years. It's just what happens. It's the nature of the beast. And I'm super excited about kind of where our recruiting is headed, and hopefully we can continue to do that well.
Chris, Micah said that he worked all summer with that goal of trying to be able to play some at the 4 and stay on the floor at the 5 when you go small.
Sure.
He thinks he's there. It's up to the coaches, obviously. From what you've seen, do you think he's going to be able to handle that this year?
Are you talking about the 4 or playing?
Both.
Yeah, I think.
His agility.
Yeah, I don't know that. Listen, it's time will tell on that, and are there times where we could potentially play that lineup? Sure, but I'm not sure that in today's game, that's going to be a way we're going to be able to play for extended periods effectively. I do think there perhaps are some teams where you can go that route, but there are too many teams that are playing spread offensive systems that really require tremendous kind of foot speed and agility and great ball. Our ball screen defense in general needs to get better, but I do think there's some lineups where we'll take a look at that.
And what are you looking at? For, Caleb said he's never been had less body fat than he has now. His weight is still up. His goal is to play 30 minutes a game. How much would you like?
Did you ask the other guys what their goal in terms of minutes per game were? Because I would love to know that, and we'll total it up, and then we'll see how realistic that is. All right, we'll share it with them.
I mean, with his talent, and you just said he might be your go-to guy. So how often would you like to see him on the floor?
You know, I think we'd love to see him play. He's going to definitely play more than I think he played around 21 minutes last year. That's definitely going to get increased as long as he can do what we're expecting him to do. But he's worked hard to put himself in position to be more conditioned, and I think just having a year under his belt will help that. But I wouldn't want to put like necessarily a number on it. But I will tell you that his minutes will significantly increase, and I think that you know, as teams will try to attack him as they did last year in terms of ball screen situations, and they'll try to be really physical with him. So Caleb's done a good job trying to bring some variety to his game, which I think is important. As I've mentioned, he's gonna shoot more threes and play a little bit more out on the floor. Because I think that's important for our team and important for him too. But he's in good shape right now, and I think he can take another level in terms of his conditioning. I really do. I just got a report this afternoon from our strength coach that he had dropped 2% body fat. So he's made good strides, and we got to keep moving in that direction. We're not quite there yet.
Chris, does he need to be a dominant kind of all Big Ten caliber player for you guys to have success this year?
I think both he and his brother will need to have good years for us to have a good year, whatever that looks like. Because I think both guys are going to be on the floor. Both guys, Andre for one, gives us a lot of versatility. He was critical in a lot of games last year, but he was critical in playing a specific role. He's going to need to increase his scoring and his production. But I really would look at it, certainly Caleb will need to take the next step, whatever that looks like. But I would put his brother along with that. They're both going to need to have good years for us.